Greetings, lovely listeners, and welcome back to Games Gone. This is our final episode of The Last of Us. This is the big one, the Preserving Memories. If you haven't been with us before, this is how it's going to go. We have some rotating segments thrown in the mix, but we always start with our memories and end with community memories, or the hive mind, or whatever you want to call it. This is where we preserve those memories for good, because that's half of what we started this podcast all about. We want to preserve the memories. It makes sense. So then we can listen back to on our old age, talk about these things. You know, all the good stuff. So thank you for listening, listeners.
I love it when we have a script for our intro, and then you kind of derail a little bit.
A little bit, yeah. That was pretty good.
I like it. By the way, I'm Larry.
And I am Michael, the one who derailed that wonderful memory portion of our podcast. But honestly, this is one of my favorite episodes. And so we're going to start off. But before we do that, if you want to be awesome, the best thing you can do is rate us on Apple Podcasts. We just got a new review this month. So
yeah, it's awesome. I'm all happy.
Actually, it's not this month. While we're recording it. So it was last month we got a new review. Yay.
Go random person.
JJ. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So that is out of the way. Let's talk about them memories. Is there a first one?
I guess I'll start. It makes sense for me. My first memory was long before I actually went through and played the game. And the only reason, and for better or worse, the only reason I even had an experience with it was because of you.
Oh,
you invited me down into our parents' basement to play. I can't. There was a lot.
Do you know what was happening? This was my first memory too. It was my college graduation.
That's what. Yeah. Okay. I was like, I knew there was a lot of people there. I couldn't remember why, but I remember when you sat me down to play. Like Ryan was there.
A bunch of people, I think.
I think Ben was there.
David, Gus. Yeah, there was quite a few people. It's 2013 is when I graduated.
Yeah, and so you made me play through the intro of the game because obviously it shook you in a way that you wanted to have everyone. You're like me in the sense, and I think this is why you can tell we're brothers. I'm so big on like when I see something and I'm like, oh my gosh, someone like this is so cool. I almost have more enjoyment of like going and grabbing other people, but like you got to see there because I want to see their reaction. I think it's why I love like reaction videos on YouTube so much. Mm-hmm. I love seeing other people's genuine excitement or disappointment or something. More so excitement. And yeah, so like that, my first memory was just kind of being handed a controller, like Larry, sit down. I sit on the couch, and then you're just like, go. And you know, I see the title screen. You got the drapes blowing in the wind lightly, one of the best
scores
opening screens
too?
ever. Oh, I like. I can't remember what episode it was, but you talked about like, you know, it's a good point. Like that guitar is purposely not tuned, and
there's something different about it.
Yeah,
I don't know what it is.
It gives it like a really, and who knows? I mean, I'm not technical when it comes to that, so maybe it is tuned. I don't know, but it does sound like there's a twinge or twang to it. That's
like
a little odd.
Worn and overly used.
But yeah, so like that was my initial memory outside of just actually getting into it and playing it.
Now, the weird part I remember, obviously, I can talk about that real quick. I believe, if my memory is correct, I played that the night before, and I was jonesing about it. And I was like, oh my gosh. Oh, no, I remember that because I stayed up super late, and I think it started at the college graduation party started at like 1 or 2, and I was like, I need to go to bed because it was like 6 a.m. And I remember my memory with this game is I stayed up 3 nights till 6 a.m. Like I kept playing at like 11 until 6 a.m. and I beat it in 3 sittings because I just could not stop. I was like, I need to finish this game, and it took me like 18 hours on survival or something like that, 1837 or something like that. I don't remember exactly. I wish I still had that file, but it's stuck somewhere in my broken PS3, which I'll get to that memory here in a bit. But I was so ready to share this. I was like, I know it's my college graduation, but Larry, can you come and play this game? And the funniest part that would happen was you were playing. I think I actually got to sit and watch you almost beat the entire thing. And
intro.
Intro. Beat the intro scene. And people started coming in the door. So I had to run upstairs. And so I would be mingling with people. And I come back and it kept growing. And the weird part is everybody kept restarting it and because they wanted to see the beginning of it.
The memory that I have that it still cracks me up was it's the image of, obviously I got completely engrossed in the game. And I remember I tend to have this thing, and I've grown out of this, but I used to get to a point whenever you would show me a game, I knew you loved it and wanted me to like it. I tried to find every excuse possible to not like it.
I remember this.
Like I was trying to
Drove me
like,
nuts.
I didn't like, I did, you know, I think I was trying to say like the controls felt a little like loose with the girl and like the camera was a little off, which it wasn't. But the memory that I have other than playing the game, and I can get into that, was you running up and down the stairs because you were like, okay, someone else would come in the front door of our parents' house and you know, you'd run upstairs and kind of greet them and say hi, and then you'd come vrooming, you'd come back downstairs saying, "Oh, do you like it?" Like you'd ask me questions, but then you'd try and stay quiet, like, okay, just enjoy it and play. And just the image of you running up and down the stairs, just because like, you get it, you want to see, because you're never going to, if there's something crazy that happens. That was my first experience with it. You're never going to be able to see my reaction to that again live, other than me talking to you about it.
And I remember.
But yeah, the crowd of people in there kept growing.
Yeah, and the second or third time I was down there, it was like completely silent.
Oh,
because
yeah.
it was towards the end. And I was like, "This is awesome."
Yeah, see,
you could cut a knife through this tension.
Because I remember too, Ryan, him being there. We were both, because I know Ryan's big on like not showing emotion and stuff too, and we were kind of going back and forth. And you know, I'd be talking to him about stuff, but it was like the further and further. And we talked about this in an earlier episode. There is the subtle build-up in tension in the intro. It's very well done. It's the, okay, I'm just going to aimlessly walk around the house. But then it's the way, I remember when you go down the stairs, there's the ambulance that goes by outside. And just the realization of, like, there's actually a physical, like, it's a dumb thing to say, but, like, the idea that there's a world, there's something going on out there that's connected to the TV. And, like, even when you have the TV and they have the little, or not, that's a terrible sound effect, like the chiming that kicks in.
Oh,
and then it kind of gives you the thing to go look outside, and then you see the explosion. And there's the genius of it is delayed. There's the delay compared to when it really happens. Oh, that's so awesome. And then there's, you know, it just keeps building more and more, and you get the phone call, and the, you know, he's obviously freaking out, and then finally you get to the point where, you know, you see Joel again, or actually I'd even go so much as to say that beginning scene when Joel and Sarah, are on the couch together. Just the way they interact with one another.
So good.
I was like, I love that relationship. You could tell it's like that is a single father, like daughter relationship right there. And it was fascinating. Now, I will say, I don't know how, did they ever say how old Sarah was?
No, I want to say.
Because I mean, she was clearly at the house by herself.
I want to say she's like 12 or 13.
Okay, I mean, maybe that's an age where it's okay then. But that was always something I remember. Like I thought about that years later, like what? Because obviously, when I first played it, it was one of those things where I was just in the experience and all that. Mm-hmm. But then the second time playing, I kind of sat down and was thinking about it more. I was like, why is she at home by herself?
Single parents, gotta do what you gotta do, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, you can go on to
how'd that go with Ryan though?
The part that I thought was amusing with Ryan and me was we initially started off talking. We were babbling back and forth like, oh, hey, look at that and look at that. Mm-hmm. And as the scenes went on, we started getting silent, and then that would bring into fact what you were talking about, how the room was silent. We quit talking to each other. It was just it became. This was one of the first games that I had played that I can remember that it was an experience. It wasn't just. It was kind of surpassing just a video game. And it was more, I'm playing it, but I'm experiencing it. It's kind of taking me along for a ride. And that was something I hadn't been used to in a long time. There's only a couple of games I've ever played that have done that for me.
It's just, it's so weird coming from the outside, because I'm sure I had people at my graduation that weren't big gamers. Now, I was single at the time, I believe. Yeah, I was single at the time. And I remember just everybody... Somebody asked, I don't know who it was, like, where is everybody? Because they're like, we see all these cars. And they just open up the store, and there's just a bunch of people crowd around this couch and TV. It's such a weird, but I love that memory. I wish I remember everybody that was there. Thank you much for coming, even if I don't remember you. But what an interesting experience.
To me, the biggest moment I remember having was a delayed moment for me. And it's actually something I've never brought up before. But so that game, obviously, everyone knows at the end of the intro, there's the brilliance, there's the unfortunate brilliance of this scene that happens, and, you know, Sarah does get killed. And the voice acting, everything in that scene is just unbelievably done. And then there's something really cool about the montage, because you just experience that, and then it's like a blurb of all this like information as like the virus is spreading. That's kind of their way of like passing on. But I remember when I was watching that scene and experiencing it for the first time, it was one of those things where I was like, this is emotional, this is tough. But like it didn't like I wasn't one of those guys that just like broke down crying or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
However,
Nothing wrong with that.
I had an emotional moment that night.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So I remember tucking my daughter to sleep in bed. And what I always used to do is basically, and you don't give me parenting advice on this, but my daughter will lay in her bed, and then I would always sit at the foot of her bed, and I would just sit back, and I would just kind of lay there with her and kind of just wait until she falls asleep, and then I'd leave the room. And there's something that I just enjoyed about, like, we would kind of just talk.
What is wrong with that?
There's a lot of people who think you get your child used to, they need you to be there. They can't sleep on their own. Oh. My daughter can sleep on her own fine now. But I remember looking at her, and for some reason, like there was like this waterfall of emotion. Now, I didn't like bawl my eyes or anything like that, but I genuinely like, how when you're like fighting back crying, and like your cheeks and like your upper neck kind of get tense. Mm-hmm. There was that, I had that moment with me, and I got like, it was like, that was when I realized like I need to play that game sometime. Took me a couple years,
quite a few,
but
that's okay. You got around to it.
Play it. Yeah.
My other experience outside, this one's a little cloudy, but I remember this E3 so well when they showed the gameplay demo and they didn't say anything. It was a guy out there holding. It was kind of dim light. There was a light shining him, but he was kind of in shadows. And he was holding the PS3 controller. That would be the right one at the time. And it was just no intro, just started playing, and it was showing the fighting scene in the hotel, I believe, because he was like bashing people against the window ledges, and I was like, man, this looks really, like, I wasn't really excited for this game. I saw the trailer before. I was like, I was watching that. I was like, this looks really good. Oh, man. And I think we might have all been, I don't know if we were all together on this one. We might have been. I can't remember. This would have been either 2013 when the game came out. For E3, it might have been.
We've all gotten a lot. Like, I feel like for some reason there's like weird lapses in my brain of like why we weren't together for E3s as often when we were younger. It was more just like, oh, did you see that?
We usually texting back and forth or something. But I remember at the very end, he just drops the controller and walks away. And I was listening to an interview about this guy, and he like brought up this decision. He's like, he couldn't decide. He's like, I kind of want to just do it. I just feel like it should be right. And he was like battling with himself if he should just drop it or not. And that's what he ended up doing. He's like, I felt so good. And like, I really like that human aspect of it behind it.
That's cool.
Very cool game, obviously. And that initial gameplay trailer is what sold me. And it's usually the opposite. It's usually story trailers that sell me on games. Like, for instance, the newest God of War, it was a story trailer that sold me on that game. And it's weird just how Last of Us was like gameplay. Right. And I end up loving the story the most. So
yeah,
it's funny how that works. Do you have another memory at all?
Oh, well, I actually, it's a memory, but it's also, it's just kind of something that I thought was kind of interesting for a game that I like so much. I actually didn't like the beginning of the game after the intro. I actually thought the whole quarantine zone area.
Really?
I wasn't a big fan. There was something about, like, you obviously had the weighted gameplay. You got to learn a lot about everything. But for me personally, there was something about the quarantine zone area that I was kind of, when I was playing by myself, just experiencing it. And I definitely think there's a big portion of it that I had heard all the expectations. And so I was kind of waiting for like that big, like, okay, this is the moment. This is going to get me. And which is unfortunate because I feel like I harmed the game in that way. I specifically have written down now.
Not from your review, so it's okay.
Yeah. The outskirts chapter is when my opinion started changing. That's when...
that demo.
Yes.
Oh, that demo. It takes place in the outskirts, doesn't it? Where you have to... I think it starts off, it's raining, and you have to go into the skyscrapers.
Yes.
And then the last battle is when you face against the clickers for the first time. Oh, it's such a good demo.
And I just had jotted down, like, obviously we had mentioned earlier, like, the art design in general, I thought was just unbelievable. The idea of like, a building holding up another building which I still wonder. There's a part of me like, why did that happen? Like, what led to the building collapsing and like turning over? That, especially if it's only been like 20 years since that happened. So there's part of me that wonders what happened there.
Well, we know that the military came in.
So obviously maybe there were some explosions and things like that. But that scene also has. obviously it's the museum scene, and with Tess and kind of her, that whole it leads to that point. And I remember obviously playing that game after Sarah died. I was kind of like, okay, this is their moment. They killed off a character that you don't expect to die. And I still have never 100% been able to decide if I like Tess or not, in the sense that she's obviously a very well acted character, but I was always undecided at like her interests and like what her point of view was. But like, so the sacrificial scene, the way that it was done, it wasn't your atypical like, I'm gonna sacrifice myself. It was a slow build up, and then the whole like, there has to be enough here for you to want to basically like agree and like listen to me and do what I'm saying. And there was so much like realism in that thought. Like, listen, the world sucks. Things haven't worked out for us, but there's something here. You just you know it. Maybe we've never said it. I don't know. We don't know the whole backstory between them. Mm-hmm. But it was like when that scene happened for the first. That's kind of when I was like, okay, there's something here. This is going to be a journey. This sucks. This is happening.
Such a good idea that they didn't make Tess the bad guy like they were planning on that.
Yeah, I read that. That would have been terrible.
So smart choice, Night Dog. Smart choice. Danielle's first experience. So my wife, currently now, hopefully still. I was gonna say,
that's gonna change by the time this is live.
Back in this memory, she was my girlfriend at the time.
Gotcha.
And so we had been playing the night before, my PS3. So we were playing Rayman Origins. Her sister was over, and we were trying to beat. I remember it was Renee and I. We were trying to beat. If you never played Rayman Origins, there's these certain treasure chest levels where this treasure chest has to run away from you. You have to catch it, and it is grueling hard, and it's like perfect platforming parts. And you have to. I think I tried like 70 times probably before this dinner, and I just couldn't beat it. And I just needed to take a break, and Renee was like, all right, we'll do it after dinner. And I was like, all right, maybe. I ended up beating it eventually, but not right then. But so the next day, Danielle and I were playing it, and in her apartment, I was watching her struggle with those controls. Oh my gosh, it's so hard. When somebody doesn't know, she didn't really grow up gaming. Even when her siblings game, she was more watching for the most part. She's the oldest.
That is always a realization. Like, and again, it's nothing. It's not their fault. They
no.
Just grow up, but man, you take it for granted. How used to you are.
So I put it on. I think I put it on easy or normal. I can't remember what it was, but just watching that camera flip around, I was like, oh gosh. But she would even watch me play, and she's like, you're making me dizzy with the controls. I was like, okay, that's weird, because I'm used to just flipping around, looking at everything, and she's not.
There is also something to that. Whenever you're holding a controller, your brain, you know what actions you're going to be making, so you have an idea.
That's true, yes. So she made it all the way to the docks, so she did really well. And as we were playing, PS3 just shut off. I was like, okay, that's kind of weird. Maybe it overheated or something. I tried turning it back on, and it just wouldn't work. I'd press it, and it started making this blinking light. I was like, oh no. And I tried injecting the CD. I couldn't get the CD out. And I was like, okay, so I have to buy a new PS3 and I have to buy a new Last of Us. And so that CD, it's still up on that shelf, the PS3, the dead one. The CD is still in there.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I don't know. I just keep it just because it's memories, I guess. But
that's a good memory.
But I lost a lot of, at the time, I lost quite a few save data stuff. I'm like, well, I'm not restarting that game. I think my Skyrim file's on there. So I was like, nope. Nope. But it was fun. At least you got to play a little bit of it. And she seemed to like it. So that was good.
Well, that's good. We just got done talking about violence in video games episode with kids. Another memory I have is in the outskirts level. I remember my daughter had just gotten home from daycare. She always, whenever she gets home from daycare, I kind of had put the controller down. I walked over and I told her, I was like, hey, how was your day at school? How was everything going? And then she always, by default, would always walk over and she sets her backpack down. She takes her homework out for what little homework she has. And she sees Ellie on the TV screen. And she had seen me watch trailers and stuff like this for the game first. So she kind of was like, hey, I kind of recognize this girl. But she sees girl. Like a lot of games that she plays, she likes seeing when there's like a smaller, younger character in it. And it ended up being one of those situations where like she was so attached to the girl. And I had one of those like kind of out-of-body experiences where I'm looking at it and I'm like, here's my daughter. And here's a girl on screen. They're not that much of an age difference from one another. Obviously, as we talked about off screen or off podcast here, she's a little bit older than I thought she was. But it was one of those things where like I instantly started comparing. I'm like, man, I can't even imagine my daughter being in this world. And
right,
the things that this poor girl has to go through, video game character or not, like that's the story behind it. And you kind of start realizing some of the complications, because obviously when you have a kid, they're never quiet. So like the idea that like, you know, a teenage girl of Ellie's age, and even when this outbreak happened, she obviously has grown up with it her entire life. So she was a 2, 3, 4, 5-year-old at one point. I cannot imagine living in a world with a kid like that, having to protect them. And so it was kind of like, it kind of hit hard in that sense. So
interesting. Another one for me is having my gaming binges with Dennis. So him and I think this was like the second game we chose.
You guys, I remember you guys used to.
Yeah,
I think do this, right?
Yeah, we still do it every summer and every winter actually when he comes back.
I like that,
which is awesome. And I also introduced this to my now brother-in-law Ferris, and both of these had a similarity. At one point, I was like, okay, I'm going to bed, because with this one we wouldn't trade off. I was just watching them play, and I like to do that a lot. I'll just sit and usually Dennis and I switch off like every chapter, whatever game we're playing or whatever. We find a good part, like, hey, you want to play now? Okay, cool. But with both of these instances, I was just watching them, and I went to bed, and I wake up, and I assume they went to bed at some point, but they're much further than I thought they would be, and I'm like, huh. And I think at one point I woke up and Ferris had already beaten the game. I was like, wow, what'd you think of the ending? I wanted to see that. Dang it.
Yeah. I would say, just as a takeaway, just not so much of a memory. It's just kind of a lasting impression. And something that I had written down was, you always hear about like the story, the gameplay, the brutality of the game. No one ever really, I don't feel like enough people talk about like the music and like the sound effects in the game. There's something so eerily peaceful about like the strum of the guitar, the piano, the way that, not piano, it's just the guitar, right?
I can't remember.
I thought there was a couple of piano notes at some point, but
there might be.
I might be misremembering. But, and then for me, it was just the sound design, the way like, you know, I keep bringing up like the heaviness, the groundedness to this world. There was something about like the way, you know, you can tell Joel has weight on him. He's carrying around a lot mentally and physically. Like there's so much going on. And it was just like the way the clickers and the zombies, like some of those noises that you hear in the background, just right around that corner, the shots of gunfire.
My favorite song is the beating someone with a wooden bat. Or
Yeah.
not a wooden bat, just like a wooden plank. Man.
Yeah, it's just it's not a game that obviously has like a massive soundtrack or anything like that. It's not like the point, but there's a subtleness to it that I very much enjoy. And especially like there's a scene when you're in I think it's Pittsburgh, when you're on the freeway, right? Mm-hmm. And just the transition to when you get to that point, and like the I mean, I'm gonna not do it justice. I can't remember how to do it, but just the way they kind of do that in the passage of time, where it's like you can't hear what they're saying, but you know there's discussion going on. I just enjoyed that a lot, and I was shocked at that.
A couple other memories. Multiplayer with Ben. So I didn't talk about this at all in my review. I loved the multiplayer. I thought it was one of my favorite aspects of actually the game. We made it through both campaigns on multiplayer, and what you have to do, I think you have to survive 12 weeks or something like that. And how the multiplayer worked is you play, it's 4-on-4 deathmatch or survival, whatever it is. And how you do in the game influences how many scraps or food you get to bring back to your community. And there's a points that happen. You can pick bonuses and perks that you have to do per week. And those perks, there'll be instances like at week 4 or week 8 that bandits will come, and it has the opportunity for you to lose out in your entire community, and then you lose all your progress. And you have to start all over.
Okay.
It's very interesting. And the crazy part about that was I lost at the very last week, so I had to redo this so I had to go all the way and grind all the way back up to it again.
Oh.
So I was like maybe an hour away from getting this trophy, and I was like, oh, and I was like, Ben, we gotta do it again.
So how long does it take you to go from like week
Oh,
one
it
to
takes a
12?
long time. I want to say we played at least 30 hours, maybe 40.
Just to get once or total?
I think total, maybe
Okay.
actually probably even more. We played this game quite a bit, but I wanted to keep playing because I was having so much fun. And to put that into, I think I put the stats. Yeah, So I beat on my PS3. I beat the Firefly. So you can either be Firefly group or the Hunters. I beat the Firefly multiplayer on June 16, 2013. So Ben and I were going hard. I beat the Hunter multiplayer on August 15th, 2013. So we spent the whole entire summer playing these.
Oh, wow. See,
Basically.
I have like a small recollection. I remember you playing multiplayer and kind of just watching it for a little bit. And I remember there being like a level where I don't know what was on the left side, but it was like there's a couple of crates in front of you and then like an open spot and then some more crates on the other side and the enemies were over there.
I think that's Tommy's Dam level.
Yeah, maybe. And I remember it seemed like there was methodical and it was very well paced.
It's exactly how the single player is, and that's why I loved it. It's slow, methodical, and you have to stick together.
Yeah.
It's hard to go crazy and win. It usually doesn't work. And Ben and I, we would just sit next to that's how we always do it, and I appreciate that. We would just sit down next to each other and just play those games over and over. It was, oh my gosh, was it fun. It was so much fun. I think Kevin got into it a little bit.
Yeah, for some reason I have a subtle memory of I thought Kevin was playing at some point, but yeah, for some reason I never gave the multiplayer a try.
Yeah, it's fun. It's unfortunately it got broken later on because they did DLC weapons that you could not earn in the game. That really bugged me. And I would say 7 out of 10 times I couldn't beat them if it was 1-on-1. I was pretty good in it if I got my full upgrade, because you could upgrade your guns by getting rations and stuff. If I had I always used my burst rifle. If I got that, I could mainly beat people, but there were instances where like it wasn't even a question of skill. It was more like you have the better gun. You're gonna win.
What was the reasoning?
I have no idea. The PS4 edition, I bought it again. I don't know why.
That's the version I have.
Yeah, I was just like, why not again? Sure. So I bought it, and I tried playing through grounded mode, which is the extra difficulty mode that only exists on the PS4 edition, I believe. I know that was a new mode. I still have the file. I'm on the part where, in the suburbs, where the sniper is shooting at me, and I have so little health that no matter what I do, I'm one hit dead everywhere, and I've tried so many times. I'm just like...
That made me wonder, though, too, since you got again. Did you ever play the Left Behind DLC?
Yeah, I did.
Okay, because I haven't.
It's good. Actually, I have a note in here.
Okay, good.
Let's see what do I say? Oh, if I had save states on PC, like Last of Us, if I had save states on PC, maybe I could beat the sniper point so I could save everything, but I just got frustrated with keep doing it over and over again.
Yeah.
On the PS4, this is also where I played the Left Behind DLC, which I enjoyed overall. I didn't think it was like fantastic like The Last of Us was, but it was cool seeing, Ellie had a friend named Riley, and she died. This just shows a little bit about that scene, what happened, the lead up to that, and it shows her obviously kissing her, I think, was the big thing. Which, interesting enough, people just didn't know Ellie was.
People seem to forget that because like that was a big. I know when Last of Us 2. With that, when the gameplay trailer released this past at E3,
that was straighter before.
You already knew that. She had already.
But the thing is that I guess this was the only part where you see it in game, and that was locked behind DLC. So maybe people didn't.
Yeah, that's possible. I can because I knew about it, but just because I'm kind of somewhat in the gaming community, I had just heard about it or whatever.
Yeah, and I like that. I like the fact that I heard about something in the game, and then you get to experience it via DLC, even though it's the past. It's kind of. I wish it was Ishmael's story, but that would have been cool.
Yeah, that was kind of one of my next big takeaways was I thought there was a subtle genius behind the whole Ishmael letters. That was kind of one of those things where I'm big when it comes to when I'm playing games. I'm really big on collecting stuff, and I found myself in that area checking everything. Everywhere. I didn't want to miss anything. I didn't know if maybe there'd be any subtle drawings and things on walls that would hint towards like, okay, there's children, anything like that. And I always remember the one that made me chuckle though, is there was a note and I wrote down the quote and it's like, this is from Ishmael, if you find my skeleton, please don't step on my skull. And I thought there was like, there's like morbid humor behind that. And I don't know what it was. Like, I honestly wouldn't mind. There's like a part of me that almost felt like you should have a DLC based off of these people. Like, I think it would have been kind of cool to see this experience. And the idea that something so small, and in a world like that, more than likely that's what's going to happen, a door being left open changed everything. And then there's the whole idea behind, obviously the group got split off. We don't really know what happened. Like, he got away with, it was the older lady and a kid, I believe, and then some other people. There's the sad one about one of the older adults was in a room with like 12 kids, and he locked the door, and supposedly to like save the fate or whatever, it's implied that they probably had to shoot and kill all the kids so they didn't get eaten by the like freaking gruesome stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But that's a subtle story that there's no words behind it. There's nothing. It's storytelling within a
There's
game.
only words behind it.
Yeah. There's no spoken dialogue, I should say. It's all written, and it's in there if you want to discover it.
Yeah, when they announced they were going to do a story DLC, a lot of people speculated, ooh, do we see Joel back in the past, or could it be Ishmael?
Mm-hmm.
They land on Ellie and Riley, which I think was a cool concept to explore, but I think Ishmael could have been cooler. But I also like that it's not.
I kind of almost think like just the mystery of it works. Do you think there's a subtle possibility like that the reason they did the Ellie thing is Ellie was such a strong character? This was their testing ground to see if the DLC did good, it would allow them to then further have Ellie kind of be the main potential. It definitely looks like they're shooting for Ellie to be the main character in Last of Us Part 2. It is interesting their choice.
Maybe. I don't know.
See, and that's the thing though. It's like, are they purposely not involving Joel because they're just doing that, and then when you play the game, like he's gonna be a big part of it, or is this separate? Like she's now grown up. She doesn't need a babysitter around all the time, so you physically control her when he's a living, breathing being in the world, but he doesn't need to watch out for you all the time.
Well,
that's gonna be interesting.
We'll find out. The last time I played this game, apparently, was December 6th, 2014, because that's when I completed the Hunter trophy. PS4 version. So I got the Hunter and the Firefly multiplayer.
So it's still been over 4 years since you last played, though.
Yeah. I might have actually played a little bit after this because I think I might have just got frustrated trying to get the Firefly one. Be like,
gotcha.
I'm done with this pay-to-win crap.
Yeah.
Like, nope, not doing that anymore. And that's basically all my memories.
Yeah, I mean, I wrote down. I always thought I think I brought this up at one point. The bloater fight in the high school. Mm-hmm. There's just something. I don't know what it was like. It reminded me of like older. I can't remember. I was trying to rack my brain, but I remember when I played it the first time, there was something about that scene that reminded me of a movie, and I can't for the life of me remember what movie it was. There's just something kind of like smile-inducing about the whole scene itself, and I do remember also Bill's character in general cracked me up. Like I actually wrote down he was another guy who had So I obviously like the idea between all the different booby traps and things like that. But one of my favorite things that he did, he has a quote in the game. I had to write it down because I couldn't remember it off the top of my head. But it's, once upon a time, I had somebody that I cared about. It was a partner, somebody I had to look after. And in this world, that sort of bleep is good for just one thing, getting you killed. And the part that cracks me up about that is, like, I remember when he first started talking, I was like, oh, he's going to be sentimental. And then he turned back into, like, there's Bill again. And it's just, his character is, there's just a complexity to him. But
we can talk about that in our rotating segments.
Oh, okay, that works too. So,
shush.
Bill was interesting. I'll give you that.
All right. So that concludes our memories. We're going to talk about more memories relating to the game here with some of our rotating segments. But if you want to do your own memories, we got some retro collecting things, some little tidbits for those collectors out there. So PS3 version, you should pay $7 for this game. They've made so many. Obviously, the stats on the review one, it made there's 17 million copies out there. So don't pay a lot for this game. $10 at most I'd pay. There are 2 collector's editions, though, that I never knew about. Probably because, that's a good question. I don't know why I didn't know about this. Survival Edition, originally $79.99, comes with an art book, a steel case, a variant cover comic of The Last of Us called American Dreams. So there's a comic out there. I didn't know that either. Looks to be about Ellie and Riley. You also get a PS3 theme, avatars, and a soundtrack. This one's all over the place price-wise. I've seen it from $40 to $55 to $90. Doesn't really seem to be a consistent price.
Interesting.
On the sites that I checked, like eBay and stuff, I know it was trending on eBay when I looked at this last week. So this is October 2018. I'd say it was trending at 50, so $60 is the most I'd pay for all this jazz if you want to get some collection. But it kind of seems like it's going to be on an upward trajectory, so watch out. And then there's the post-pandemic edition. It was originally $159.99, and this was a GameStop and a U.S. exclusive. It includes all the previous thing, minus the art book, which is odd.
Weird, yeah.
But it also has a multiplayer bonus pack to help you out and 2 additional skins in multiplayer that unlock after you beat the game. Interesting. Then a 12-inch statue of Joel and Ellie.
Ooh.
This thing is stupidly expensive. It's skyrocketed. So $600 seems to be about the average price. So I saw the statue alone going for $400. New unopened, so if you have the box...
Is there like a really limited supply of these?
Well, it was GameStop exclusive. It's already a high-priced item, so $159, and it was exclusive to the U.S. as well.
Okay.
So there's 2 exclusivities right there and a big price tag. I saw it unopened on eBay that sold for just over $1,000. So it's crazy.
Video game memorabilia, man.
So if you're a huge T-Lo fan, still don't buy it.
You're gonna have to pay huge money.
Yeah, I couldn't justify that. I mean, man, I love this game, but no. Unless $1,000 to you, like $1,000 is like a $10 bill, then you can go buy it. That's fine. Buy 2 of them. Give one to me. That'd be awesome.
There you go.
You can get this on the PS4 digitally for $20. Obviously, for physical, don't pay more than $20. If you can get the game for $20 digitally, just go buy it digitally. Otherwise, pay like $12, $15. You're good. That's where I was kind of seeing them around anyways. So that is your retro collecting stuff. PS3 and PS4. You are welcome. On to the next. What's on the case?
Your favorite segment.
Yeah. Keep or revise. So, Larry, this is what the back of the case says, and we're going to figure out if we want to revise it or keep it, or if this sounds great. The Last of Us. Joel and Ellie, brought together by harsh circumstance, must survive a brutal journey across the U.S. in a dangerous post-pandemic world.
So here's my thing. I think one of the most common things that I saw when I was watching people kind of react to the beginning of this game, any of that stuff, is everyone was like, is this the girl on the cover? Like, everyone was confused at who Sarah was. Like, that doesn't look like Ellie.
Okay.
And so I felt like because of the fact that, the back describes that, the character that you have on here, all of that, there was a part of me that wondered if maybe they were kind of spoiling what was going to happen. Like, to a small extent of, okay, because I saw multiple people when they were doing their blind playthroughs back, they have their YouTube stuff uploaded. They're like, okay, well, this isn't Ellie. This girl either isn't in the picture or she must die somehow. Like, people started the game up thinking something bad was going to happen to this girl. And
Do you think that's fine? I think it's fine.
I mean, there's a part of me that wonders if just the shock factor would have been a little more if, like, you came out with obviously Ellie's such a marketable character, so you probably want to have her on the cover anyways.
It would be really dumb to have Sarah on the cover.
Well, no, I wouldn't say have Sarah on the cover. Maybe just come up with a creative way of, like, just showing the back of Ellie in them, like doing something in the background with, like, a zombie or infected or, like, Joel. Coming up with a clever way of, like, not having her face be shown. And then not say Ellie.
Nah, because it's Joel and Ellie's story. It's not Sarah.
It is. I get it. I know. It's just that's the only thing I would say is, like, maybe if you wanted to add, like, a little more of a surprise factor at the beginning, not sure that. Otherwise, the description itself, it explains what happened, so I get that.
Journey across the U.S. They start from the East Coast and go to the West Coast. They don't go to the West Coast. They go about Jackson, Wyoming. No, Utah. They don't make it all the way to the coast. So is it technically across?
Yeah, that's across.
Okay, that's good. I like that they use post-pandemic. I like that.
Yeah.
By harsh circumstance. Brought together by harsh circumstance. Yes, because they kill Robert, who then Marlene takes them. Yeah, that's harsh circumstance. I'll take that. Good.
They didn't elect to. It was kind of you have to do this sort of thing. And then, of course, once Tess dies, they're basically just, Joel still doesn't want to do it. He wants to just go back.
You get all the way to Time's Day. It's like, take her off my hands. Come on.
Yep.
Do this for me. All right, so we are going to move on to the poll results. Video game poll. So over on Amino, which is just a little app that has video game communities, I asked a simple question. Favorite character, Joel or Ellie? I asked this in 2 different groups. There's the video game Amino group, and there is the PlayStation Amino group.
So I think in the video game Amino, it'll be Ellie. And I think in the PlayStation, it'll be Joel.
Okay, let's see. Video game Amino, 33 votes. Joel got 51.5%, and Ellie got 48.5%.
Close.
Very close.
I was wrong there.
It was tied 50-50 for a long time while I was watching that poll. I was like, come on, somebody vote. Somebody commented on my poll, Ellie is probably my favorite character in gaming, and this person was JW0509. They also have an awesome Master Chief avatar, so good work on liking Ellie and Halo. Good choices, my virtual friend. PlayStation Amino had 22 votes, so 10 less. 10 less? 11 less. I can do math. Joel had 40.9%. Ellie had 59.1%.
So it's backwards of what I said.
Yeah, less amount of people. But overall, that's a pretty significant amount. Oh, somebody did comment. Skewing my results. Never played before, but Ellie seems neat. Can't do that.
So you should only knock it down to 10 votes there. I think that, honestly, all that shows to me is that they're just both great characters.
Yeah. The disparity between, that's 55 votes. That's a significant amount of people. Significant is coming from me.
For us.
Yeah. But it's cool. I never thought that would happen.
Right.
I agree that both of those characters are wonderful.
I don't know if I could pick a favorite.
No.
I think, and the reason why I think when they say The Last of Us Part 2, the subtle genius in that is, it sounds like we're potentially going to get more of you're going to play as Ellie and then you're going to play as Joel, and they're maybe separate from each other, or you're just playing as Ellie. I have a feeling it's going to be...
Well, we already know there's another female character you're playing as.
Do we?
Yeah, Laura Bailey, whoever her character is.
Okay.
The kind of big buff girl. Which
Okay,
is awesome.
Gotcha. All right. So... Yeah, I guess then maybe it's. I have a feeling we're still going to get to play as Joel. I got to imagine they're not going to go an entire game without allowing you to play as Joel,
especially if it's called Last of Us Part 2. But
because the idea is you're continuing Joel and Ellie's story. Now maybe Joel and Ellie's story is starting to go separate from one another, but they're kind of who The Last of Us is.
It's true.
So that'd be my takeaway from that.
Interesting. All right, favorite miscellaneous characters or side characters. Miscellaneous is a little harsh. So there's quite a few. There's Henry, there's Sam, there's Tess, Marlene, Bill, and David. Do you have any thoughts you want to do right away?
So, for me, I actually I group up Henry and Sam as one character.
I would kind of go with that.
As far as a character goes, I think Bill was probably the most entertaining for me.
Okay,
but
nice.
The storyline of Henry and Sam was my favorite. Just because it was just it gave you an idea that, Ellie and Joel, this isn't just a mirage, that it's just a, an adult and a kid. No, it's happening potentially all over the place.
Oh, I get what that connection.
Yeah, and so we got another experience. Obviously, it's 2 brothers, and it's there was just something about, and I loved like the distrust, and we had brought up the scene where they basically just ditched Joel. I understood it. I got it. And and even Joel kind of got it after the fact. Like, if roles were reversed, he would have done the exact same thing with Ellie.
Yeah, when he's beating him, Henry.
Yeah.
And then Henry says that to him. And it's like, don't tell me you wouldn't do it the other way around or something like that.
So, and then, so I'm trying to think. So out of all the other ones, do you have...
I like David.
You're like,
I like that he is a family man because it makes it so messed up. Because he's this creepy guy that eats people, and it seems like he's not a pedophile. He's a heterophile. It's something where they're not super young, but they're like in between pubescent or something like that. Because obviously he likes Ellie. You can tell that from it.
We brought it up. There was something about, I always thought his character was a little off. And again, that's not to say that it's a bad character. The guy himself is a bad person. The character was done well. But
He is like a
was
great villain in
the
my eyes.
the vibe that I got is from the hand touching scene on is when like this guy needs to die.
He has a messed up way of doing things of running his community.
You brought up the good point. There was the scene of like, I understood his being pissed off because like this girl, he even said to her, you know,
It's crazy,
but you're young. I get it. It's not your fault. But that crazy man.
Yeah,
and
you're just a kid.
yeah, you kind of can understand like, hey, listen, we need to get this solved. He killed my men. Yeah, we don't have an attachment because they're just random NPCs to us. But there was an attachment there.
That's what I love about it. They are random NPCs, or they're the bad guys, right? I got to kill them. Well, where were they come from? They probably all had families because even when the outbreak starts, it's either David or somebody or one of his henchmen. I can't remember who it is, talking to a family like, are they going to infect the kids? Because they realize Ellie's still infected, and this girl is wondering like, do I need to run away with the kids? Because are they going to get affected? That switches it on its head. Like, oh,
well,
man.
And then especially if you think about it too, like while you're playing the game, all those experiences you're going through in the game, they're also in the background in this world trying to survive. They're dealing with kids that are scared at night. They're dealing, and so you kind of get that. It just all changed when he touched her hand the way he did. That's when I was like, you're going to die.
And even off of that, he explains in that clip I played a couple episodes ago, he explains it's been an unusually harsh winter, and that's the reason they're out scavenging. So it's all about survivability. It's crazy.
And I mean, and we can't give props enough to like Nolan North was.
God, I didn't even know it was him. It was so great.
Good.
He's Nathan Drake, but now he's.
What were your thoughts on Marlene?
She was one of my favorite quotes. This is one of my favorite quotes of her. I was actually going to say this next. Apparently, there's no way to extricate the parasite without eliminating the host. Fancy way of saying we got to kill the blanking kid. And now they're asking for my go-ahead. The tests just keep getting harder and harder, don't they? I'm so tired. I'm exhausted, and I just want this to end. So be it. That gravitas of her character, like she's doing the right thing for humanity, and she realizes it's such a hard choice, and they're looking to her because she's like one of the leaders of the Fireflies, and she's like, I'm just exhausted. That's such a moving. You can look at her and be like, you're the bad person. But I don't know. It's a very gray area.
So I did kind of throw in like a secret segment that I have in here, and we actually kind of threw me off because we started talking about Bill. I had it organized in the order, but so let's first just stick on since you were talking about Marlene. You kind of answered already, but in this world, in the Last of Us world, are the Fireflies good or bad?
Good.
They're good. I 100% agree with that. There seems to be debate about that on the internet for some reason.
Well, you can see them as extremists,
They're
right?
cold. It's like maybe they don't have a heart, is what people like.
But I don't see that either.
Yeah.
Now the hard part is they're bombing in the very beginning. They're bombing the quarantine zone. So it's.
So then that was another take I had on that since you brought up the quarantine zone. Is what's your opinion on the government in the game? In the game, let's keep it there.
I think the government is just trying to control population, so survivability. Like Marlene sees the bigger picture, I think the government in this world sees a smaller one. They're more. I don't think there's across nation is quarantine zones, like little factions of government.
I always kind of picture it as like their one and only job is to not let the infection spread any further than it already has. We need to control. We need to do everything we can. Yeah,
quarantine zones.
I did want to then. Okay, you were gonna say something.
The one thing I really love about Marlene, or the way they wrote Marlene at the end, she's a pretty tough character. When we first meet her, she's shot. She's making these hard decisions. With the test coming in, this is what they have to do. They have to kill this kid. She doesn't want to because she grew up with Ellie, which is the crazier part.
Yeah.
But my favorite part is when Joel shoots her and he comes back, she starts begging for her life. She's like, you can let me go, Joel. And I like that in the last moment of death, she's still going to try and beg for her life. It's not like, just kill me, whatever, it's fine. You know, sometimes in movies or shows or whatever, they're like, I'll just accept my death. She didn't want to die.
Usually, what is it? Like, there's a lot of, like, you know, if it's a BA character, like, they'll, like, ask for a cigarette, and there's like, hold on a second.
No, she's crawling in her own blood. Like, don't do this. And Joel's like, you'll just come after me.
So that right there, you're kind of answering some of my questions. Did he do the right thing there?
Knowing how driven Marlene is, yes. Because I think Marlene.
And do you think that probably matters a lot? Like, if that was just a random person?
Yes, because Marlene was so close to Ellie and she was still willing to sacrifice Ellie that she would find the drive. She would recover, she would come back, and she would hunt Ellie down still.
Okay. So then, real quick, just so I can get back to the Bill Sutton, David side of things here. We talked about this a little bit before. The cannibalism. Is that a true means to an end in this sort of survival situation?
For me personally, no. When we talked about violence in our episode, there's two things I never cross: is rape and eating people. Those are my two. Maybe everything else. I'll murder and torture people to get my way. But in this post-apocalyptic, those would be the two lines I cross, and I feel like there's a reason why there's a contention in most post-apocalyptic games or worlds that those two things happen, because I feel like people automatically assume that's what's going to happen. And it probably would. But I don't think it's right.
Yeah.
Humans are the commodity. You don't eat the commodity.
Yeah. And again, I think this is still one of those things, like taking the moral high ground is something that it is easier to say when we're in the position we're at right now.
Oh, of course. But I'm also
I still
saying,
can't imagine myself ever doing that.
I would still want to, especially if they're my people, right? I would still want to respect them, bury them,
Yeah.
or burn them, whatever. Give them a rite of passage, even if I don't. Even at that point, I probably wouldn't believe in anything like that.
Wait, how about Tess? Or did you have your?
Yeah,
you're giving your point in your finger.
That's my thinking. I didn't write anything, but I have her name down there. I'm like, all right, let's talk about Tess. I like how you can tell there's something with her and Joel, but you don't know exactly what it is, and you don't know until the very end. And I love how forceful she is, and how she's basically Joel. She's basically Joel. I think that's what I like about her.
Yeah, I always like. I wrote down my note was, and I thought it's one of those. She's one of those weird, strange, and odd characters in the sense that not her character herself, but like we are kind of force fed. There's a history here. I mean, we get to witness the unfortunate death of Sarah, and then splash screen kind of intro credits, and then it's 20 years later, bearded, grayed up Joel sits up, walks in Tess. There's a history here. We've never met this girl before, but there's a history.
They're obviously living together, we assume.
And I do tend to say that, like, this was and again, most probably relationships are, but this is a relationship built on circumstance. Like, they're together because they're both in the misfortune of this world. And
actually, we don't really know.
Yeah, that's true. And again, you're led to just kind of you have to kind of just understand that there's something there. But they're so weird. They're like not weird. They're so hardened and cold because of the world they live in that like there's a coldness and yet like a warmth to them, and it kind of goes back and forth, and you see that like they bicker with each other. They kind of have the signs of a normal couple, but it's colder because of the world they're in and the people they've become and probably the things they've had to do.
One of my favorite lines, just the interaction, or it's probably the delivery of Troy Baker's voice when she asks him if he wants a drink. He's like, I don't want to, no. Or he says either, no, I don't want to. And he doesn't finish whatever he's going to say, but it sounds like maybe Joel had a drinking problem at one point or another.
Oh, I got to imagine he probably was deep in a bottle after. I mean, anyone would say you lose a kid. I don't know how you ever recover something like that.
But it's very interesting. There's just so much little history things that we don't know about, and I like that. I like being intrigued by that. So Bill's pretty awesome. And again, him and Frank, I think his name was, had a relationship. They called each other partners, but they don't make a big deal about it. And that's what I love about this game. You have different genders, you have different sexualities, and it's just there like it's normal.
Oh, yeah.
And that's how it should be.
And there was a subtlety to that. Like, it wasn't like, this is just something that happened. And I do think with the way how cold and harsh his character was, there is something really like just peaceful about, there was obviously something that happened and it probably broke him. He's now the man he is because of this. And I will say this though, I did that. I said the quote, he talked about where he started off like, I thought he was going to be all sentimental and then he turned into Bill.
Mm-hmm.
I actually was convinced that quote was foreshadowing. That maybe in the grand scheme of things, because now we're getting to part 2, maybe it still is. But he talks about how basically if you and obviously that quote stemmed from his relationship with Frank and losing Frank.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're having to spend time caring about somebody in this type of world, it's going to get you killed. I just was convinced that Joel's gonna. My assumption was Joel's gonna die. Ellie's gonna live. Joel's gonna have to sacrifice himself, and Bill's gonna be right. If you're caring about someone so much, you're gonna end up having to make a very selfish or unselfish decision to protect that person. Where if you didn't care about them, you wouldn't have to do that.
And now I don't know, because Bill's case, they separated, right? They're living in different houses, and this guy just killed himself. He didn't even know he was dead.
Yeah, but the idea though is that in this reality that they're in this game with infected and like the Fireflies and the government and all these hunters and groups around, if the only way you can truly survive is what he's saying is if you have to rely or protect somebody else, that's going to come to a point there's going to be a weakness there, and you're going to have to make a very unselfish decision in a world where you probably should be 100% selfish. And so for some reason, like I heard that and I was kind of like, dang it, they're going to kill off one of these two. And of course, that hasn't happened yet. I still wonder if maybe it eventually will. Not that quote will have any relevance to it anymore, but
probably not.
I thought they were trying to foreshadow there.
And we kind of lumped Henry and Sam together. I do like that Sam and Ellie have this bond of being kids, and like Ellie grabbing the toy for
the toy scene was just fantastic. I love it.
Of course, they dies pretty soon after, so it's like,
yeah. No, in that whole scene too, where I knew it as soon as he pointed the gun at Joel. I was like, he's gonna shoot. I don't know what it was. I just knew he was gonna shoot himself. Like you could just, and the voice actor for him, like the pain in his, he was portraying that unbelievably well.
Good character moments in this game. What do you know? But you know what's also good? Favorite moments in the game.
Yeah.
Why'd you say it so?
No, it's just like this was tough. Like,
okay,
coming
gotcha.
up with like.
So I just went through a couple. I know my absolute favorite. So one of my favorite moments in this game is when you see the Capitol building for the first time out in the distance, and you're with Ellie and Tess, and Joel asks Ellie, "Is this everything you hope for?" And she's unsure, but she says she can't deny the view. And the best part is Joel like folds his arms and he looks down at his watch.
Yes.
And the subtle music cue pops in. And Tess is like, "Hey, come on." And he's like, and he just kind of like shakes it off. And it's like, he's just looking at that broken watch that he has that his daughter gave him.
I thought that was like genius that they actually made, like he held on to that. And again, like I think anyone would try their best. Obviously, this is 20 years after the fact. Who knows what kind of crap they've been through. It possibly is something that gets lost. But like the idea that he's looking at that scene and he's just like, not to say, like at that point he was still very cold towards her. And it was one of those things like, this should be my daughter. Who I
don't even know if he was thinking that. I think it was almost Joel at this point has put all his past behind him. He doesn't think about that. I think him just looking at it kind of caught him by surprise, and maybe he thinks about it, because even Tess says tells him to focus.
Yeah. See, to me, and again, this is the beauty of interpretation. I read into that as this is something like he's had massive depression issues in his life ever since this has happened, and this is one of those things like it's clearly something maybe in the past has not gone right, and he's gotten distracted or lost in thought, and so she's had to work on being like, Joel, focus, get out of your head. And so I kind of read into it more like it was one of those things like he's seeing something beautiful, and it just reminds him of his daughter. That's kind of how I read into it.
Different opinions, but that's okay.
So that's fine. That's how it goes.
Joel falling off the balcony and getting impaled,
Yeah.
and then him struggling to stand and fight. That scene, I was just like, are they going to kill my Joel?
Well, because what? In every movie in the history of ever, whenever someone falls onto a beam or anything like that, or
it's not a good sign.
Or rebar or whatever usually it's called.
Yeah.
Usually they die.
Yeah. And I love when he climbs over the window and he falls onto the next part, and she's like, come on.
The weight.
The weight. Billstown, when you're working through your way through his traps and exploring his place, I just love the feeling of that. It felt very natural and just also kind of chaotic. You see his clickers just blow up when you're going by. It's great. Can I say the entire snow level? The effects of the snow, the environmental change, everything is great about that. It's probably why it made it into our top location.
Yeah, I mean, that was
favorite location one.
That was just the whole thing. And then obviously for me, the culmination of obviously when right after Ellie is finished killing David there, and we talked about before, the embrace between the two of them was so powerful.
So good.
I actually had written down, there was the scene, and I wrote the quote of, so basically when Ellie, I don't know why I can't remember the level, but Ellie runs off on horseback.
This is my absolute favorite.
This is my absolute favorite. Oh, wow. Really?
All right. So don't worry, so this is actually in Tommy's dam. After you deal with the threat in the dam, she leaves on horseback.
Yes. This scene is when the game went to epic to me.
Here we go. So Ellie has abandoned and went to a house, and she's basically just upstairs reading about stuff.
The journal.
And Joel, no, she's just reading
it was a journal.
Yeah,
remember she was looking at
all they have to worry about is
what they have to wear
and boys and stuff like that. And so Joel walks in, like, we got to go. And so this is going to come in a little bit into the conversation, but this is it.
I can take care of myself.
How many close calls have we had?
Well, we seem to be doing all right so far.
And now you'll be doing even better with Tommy.
Not her, you know.
What?
Maria told me about Sarah.
Ellie? You're treading on some mighty thin ice here.
I'm sorry about your daughter, Joel, but I have lost people too.
You have no idea what loss is.
Everyone I have cared for has either died or left me. Everyone except for you. So don't tell me that I would be safer with someone else, because the truth is I would just be more scared.
You're right. You're not my daughter. And I sure your dad. We are going our separate ways.
And Tommy barges in and ruins that epic scene.
I still like I think my favorite part about all of that is, I mean, I actually got goosebumps almost a little bit again. Just that scene. There's the part where she says, "Don't tell me I wouldn't be safe," because the way she words it, and I'd just be more scared. And the way her voice kind of like subtly cracks a little bit, and the way Joel kind of tightens up, that to me was, and I think that scene, the beauty of that scene is he's still angry at what's happening, but he's seeing a little scared girl there for the first time, which is why he changes not too long after that. And there's the scene where he decides to tell her to get on his horse.
But again, he doesn't apologize.
No, of course
he says some really harsh stuff right there.
Yes, he does.
But I think this is it's the strongest acting from both of them.
Oh.
The way Ellie delivers her line and the way Joel's like, you have no idea what it's just so, it gets me every time.
Well, and there's a subtle difference between like a little girl and like a grizzled man kind of talking back and forth to one another, but like she almost is like the one that's like, no, like this is like the first time she's stepping up. He's trying to say, you're treading on thin ice here. You don't know, you have no idea what loss is. And then she comes right back at him. And I don't even know. That's my favorite. It's probably my favorite scene in the entire game. It's so powerful. It's so well done.
And there's a little lead up before that that's nice, but I wanted to make sure I could spend like 2 minutes just standing in front of the microphone with that recording. Other ones that I liked was waking up the 20 years later and just seeing the world, and then obviously the opening introduction. But It's hard to top anything because that is my absolute favorite scene.
Mm-hmm.
There's something about all
That's
the
kinda
emotion.
crazy like that. And all the scenes in that game, we both ended up having the same one.
Because there's a lot of good scenes.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what it is.
I also did like, obviously, it's the very ending scene, but it's not. I always thought like the way that like the innocence they portrayed of like Ellie's character, but also when Joel does his, he's kind of got his arms crossed there too, and he says you got to keep finding something to fight for, and he brushes his hand up against the broken watch again at the end scene. I was kind of like that was just another cue. Like I remember, but. There was that whole scene too was something that like I thought that was a very well done scene, and the way and I still think my theory behind that scene, by the way, I think Ellie knows Joel's lying to her.
Oh yeah.
But I think it's the time all she's ever wanted is someone to care about her, and he's proved to her that he now cares about her, and she's like, okay,
Accepting the evil.
She's accepting the reality of the situation, and it's basically, okay, I get it. You care about me. That's all I want in this world now. And I think I love that it's open-ended in that sense. It's not her saying, okay, I believe you. At least that's not how I interpret it. It sounds like that's not how you interpret it. But it's more just, okay, I found
this
somebody.
is life.
This is just kind of what it is.
Oh, it's so good. Yeah. And what we'll finish with is community responses. So
No, hold on. I do.
Just kidding.
I do have. Was it one or two different? Okay, so two things. One is just a what if.
Okay.
So, or not a what if, just a question.
Okay.
Does Joel make the right decision in sacrificing humanity basically to save Ellie?
Right for him, wrong for the world.
Okay. So,
But also the other thing is, it wasn't a guarantee, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's a hard probability. What if you sacrifice this person
For
you
no
love
reason. For no
reason?
Yeah.
There's no guarantee that it would work. It sounds like probably it would have, but yeah.
Okay. And then I just wrote down. So let's pose like a similar situation in this life. Last of Us has happened. It's you, your wife, our brother, me, our brother's girlfriend, our mom, and my daughter are all together. Whom has the longest life expectancy in that group based off of our traits?
Oh, jeebers.
And what sacrifices would you make to protect your wife over your family?
My wife is my family, but
Your wife over like your brothers and...
so I'm assuming this happened here,
Mm-hmm.
excluding all friends, all other family, I'm guessing. Okay.
Yes.
Who is the best life expectancy?
Like, out of all of us, who do you think probably has the long... Because I would openly say probably... I don't have the skills... And granted, maybe nobody does if you survive a world like that. Like, so, for instance, if this world happened right away and Joel was meant to go off, like, trying to kill and, like, collect supplies, maybe he doesn't survive. But he was grizzled because he basically was dead inside after what happened to his daughter. I would probably just openly admit... I don't know how well I would do just because having a little girl in a world like that is a deterrent, and that is not something that would work out.
Or it would be...
Well, it would cause me to probably make a lot of really irrational decisions because I'd be thinking about her.
Or it'd make you make sure you survive.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it would be at any cost to making sure she's okay. But it's one of those things where, like, that is an extra safety concern, potentially. I guess my big thing on this is at what point, if there is a scenario, and it's such an impossible situation to think of, but like, is there ever a point that you could ever get to where, like for me, I even look at it in my point, if I want to put myself in a ridiculous situation where we're in this type of world and you have the option of saving A or B.
Yeah, that'd
like,
be hard. I am curious, though, that who would survive the best. I think Kevin would die of anxiety right away. So... Unfortunately.
And here's the thing.
I think he could also he'd be so erratic about safety that I think that'd be a very good thing to have around. I'm very emotional, but I have a feeling that this is weird, but I don't know why, because I'm a super nice person. I'm super optimistic all the time. I feel like I could flip that switch and kill people pretty easily, which is really weird. I would have no basis for this, but for some reason I just feel like my whole life I've been pretty mellow and everything.
Yeah.
If the opportunity arose, maybe I would just go crazy, or maybe I would just cower and try and trust everybody, and that'd be my downfall.
Yeah. It's I just try to think, like, if I look at the group, I kind of feel like I would take. I think there's justification in assuming that Kevin has like the high and the low of
Our little brother, if this is your first time listening.
Yeah, he is the type of person I believe who he would have moments where he would be better suited for it than any of us.
Yeah.
But then I think he also has some other areas where I think he would be the worst suited for it. So he's a wild card there. I think my wild cardness is the attachment with my daughter.
It's just the thing.
There's strengths to that, definitely. Trust me. But there's also some downsides and weaknesses to that too.
Our mom being a diabetic would be really hard.
Well, I mean, and again, like she's at the unfortunate circumstance just because of, like, age is starting to catch up, and I think that just is one of those things where that's just a reality of the situation. Like she'd even admit if we're having to like scrounge around walking a couple miles in a day or something like that. Granted, necessity, maybe you push yourself forward.
Yeah,
that would be a lot more difficult for her.
Sure.
You and your wife.
So my wife is very logical. So.
Yes, I actually believe. Now, again, I don't necessarily think. I don't know. Like, I think you guys are probably in this type of situation where you guys are the most even keeled. I think would be a good way of putting it. And because of that,
yeah, maybe
I think there's some logic to the fact that you guys don't have like a massive weakness or a massive strength sort of thing. It's. Kevin, I think, still is probably the best suited, but he does have his weaknesses, and I think
my passivity is a weakness. Probably
it's possible. It's possible, yeah. But yeah, I mean, you just made the statement too.
For some reason, I really do honestly think that. Like, I would just be like, nope.
I personally believe
my samurai sword and cut you up.
my take would be it would probably, and I will openly admit, obviously. I never plan. Like, this is not something that'll ever happen. Hopefully, in anyone's lifetime, there's no infection, like anything like that. I truly believe it would be stupidly easy for me to flip that switch if my daughter's involved, and it comes to like a survival side. Like, I don't even think I would blink an eye. And maybe that's a stupid statement to make because most fathers, most parents, I assume, would be like that.
Might be a thing.
But it is kind of creepy to think about, like, how probably easy that would be. Because the idea right now, like, I can't even, like, I probably would throw up thinking about, like,
gosh, yeah.
I can't, like.
Isn't that the weird part, though? I wonder why as a society we're like, no, I'm good. I don't need to kill people today.
Well, that's, we could talk about this in the previous episode. The inner workings, like, you think about this, like, for as bad as, like, the media portrays everything that's going on, think about, like, it is, but think about, like, the cogs and all the services that just continue to happen. Like, we have electricity right now.
Well, and I drive down this road.
Yeah.
And I could easily just swerve somebody off.
Do you know how many times in my life, like, I've been driving on a road, like, I used to, I used to be very, like, negative, but, like, about things where I'd be like, do you realize, like, it's creepy to think about? And I usually would think about it negatively in my eye, and then I'd go back to, well, what if the other person was thinking this? I'd be driving on a road, like, on 169 or something, going, back up from Gustavus. Because I used to always drive really late on that road, and there would be the points where you'd have the cars on either side of each other before it, obviously, they pass, and they're, it's a big barrier in between. And you get to the point where I was like, at any one point, I could just swerve into this car and change everyone's life forever. And that's such a creepy thought.
It is, yeah.
I think for the most part,
I assume everybody has thought
I'm sure. But for the most part, it continues. Like, we're relatively chaos free. We have farmers, we have production that just whether you're doing anything or not, we still have food at every time you walk into
the grocery store. Yeah.
Every time you walk into the grocery store, it's stocked with food.
So if all that went away, how would we as a family
society fall?
Yeah, and how as we as a family, how would we react to that, and who would be the best strengths of everything? I don't know. I gotta cut wood soon, so maybe I'll start thinking about this more.
Well, that was something I was gonna say too. Just think about the logical aspect of, okay, we're sitting in a house right now. Heat's down a little bit, starting to get a little cooler in here. And can you imagine if you have no access to that? You have to right now manually get it hot in this house.
Yeah, it's just
like what would you do? What would be the first thing you do right now?
That's the hard part.
I mean,
right?
you can't have a bonfire inside the house. Like, how would you warm up the house? And so, like, just that one. That's one
I don't
thing.
have a fireplace. This would
That's
be
what I'm saying.
not be a good place to have
mean-
a outbreak.
Yeah. So like, but I mean, that's just like one of those things you got to think about. Like,
Also, I have a sliding glass door. You can't have a sliding glass door in the apocalypse.
no, you can't.
There's all these factors.
A lot of people have sliding glass doors.
I know. That's what I'm saying. If you have to go to an older house or newer house, I don't know which one has them.
Kevin's apartment might be okay because you got some stairs. You could put like nail traps and stuff up there.
Oh, that's true.
Kevin's got but he's got the garage. We'd have to reinforce the garage.
Tough choices, man. I was thinking of our mom's house now, and that wouldn't work either. There's a sliding glass door in there too.
Yeah, they got.
But I suppose you can put up a bunch of stuff and just put it there.
But
I always think of 20 Days Later when they come through that one light turns on.
Yeah.
She lights a candle or something. I can't remember what it was. No, he does.
I need to watch that movie again. It's been
And
a
they
while.
just come barreling through the sliding glass door, and that just freaks me out every single time I think about that. So it's always the first thing I think about when bears. Sliding glass doors. I don't know what it is.
I also there was the question that I was asking too. Is like, who do you think would be the first one that would resort to violence out of the three of us? Me, you, and Kevin.
Kevin.
Is it weird?
Not just violence. I think he would punch a wall. That would be his first.
Yeah. For me personally, I think it would be one of those situations where we'd try and remain as calm as we possibly could, but the freak out moment would happen at some point. Like, oh my God, this is actually happening. And I feel like, for better or worse, that was my first thought. Was I think he would probably have I wouldn't say a mental breakdown, but like just in anger, like he would need to kind of get it out. Mm-hmm. But I do feel like there would be some massive strengths. But I do wonder if there's a point too, like there's a lot of like outdoorsy type stuff that you kind of need to be good at in those type of scenarios. And
we have to go back to our youth.
We'd have to start practicing some stuff again. Yeah.
Hopefully we never have to use those, but it'd be nice to know that right now. If internet's going down, sad to hear you wouldn't hear this podcast anymore.
That would actually be the most tragic thing
out of everything. But I was actually at the Renaissance Fair, and Danielle was helping a blacksmith make a spearhead, which is really cool.
See, she's already practicing for it then.
When he made the comment, he's like, I can do everything myself. He's like, if we go back into the Stone Age, he's like, I'm good. Electricity goes out. And I was like, man, that's smart. I don't know how to do much at all. I need to learn some stuff. I should have been in Boy Scouts.
I would have jokingly been like, dude, he's hitting on your woman right now. He's trying to take her from you. Like, I can protect you.
Your man can't. But that one really made me think, and that was just like a month and a half ago. So I was like, I should learn how to do some other things.
I mean,
I'm not trying to grow grass right now, and I'm kind of successful. So that's half the battle.
But I mean,
it's holding some ground.
That's a fantastic point, though. Like, what limits? I mean, for instance, I think the first thing I would probably, I mean, granted, maybe it would be an advantage to be in a cold climate, but you'd think you'd want to go to a warm climate and just remove having to deal with winters and freezing to death.
There's a freezing death, but then it's the too hot and dehydration.
Yeah.
At least I can drink the snow.
I know, but it's just the idea of like, what if you can't get a fire started for a night and it's like negative, 20 out with the wind chill?
So maybe we go to a middle ground.
Let's go to Seattle where it rains a lot, in Washington.
Yeah, maybe.
But then the problem with that is you can't hear the zombies sneaking up on you because it's always raining. Does it really rain there? I mean, I know it does. I hear about it.
Drizzly when I went to Portland.
So I think it's drizzly a lot. That's a good point.
Yeah, that would probably be the best place, wouldn't it?
You're in Hawaii. You're on an island. You gotta get out there.
There's no way I'd want to be. No.
Well, just secure it so that you know there's no zombies on the island. Go on one of the smaller ones, and then be like, okay, there's no one here.
What if it like mutates into like some whale thing?
Well, if it can swim, then it's just game over, anyways. But then, I think Washington would be a smart choice.
Yeah, maybe. Who knows? I'm sure it gets cold there too. Somewhat cold.
Oh yeah, of course. Not as cold as here.
That's true. Hello, Washington people, if you're listening to it. Does it get really that cold over there?
I don't think we've had that many downloads from Washington, so download us up and comment about
I know Maryland. Thank you, Maryland.
Connecticut, I think, has been pretty good, too. And same with Massachusetts, maybe.
Yeah. Who knows?
Should we talk about...
Yeah, we should go into preserving memories, because this is getting a little long.
Yeah, this is basically the Michael Has Friends segment.
Thank you.
So I heard from 5 of your friends. So they were very active this week.
Which is
this
great.
Month.
It's really funny, though. I reached out to all these people, and almost every single one messaged me back because I was working last night. It's like, hey, just a friendly reminder. David was like, I just sent it to you. But everybody else, like, I forgot, dude.
Well, they've been trickling in literally as late as we had one of them come today after we had finished like 1 or 2 episodes.
Yeah, but if you forgot is okay because basically everybody else did.
Yeah,
and that's the one reason I'm like I should do it earlier, but then people forget about it, so it's like catch-22. Who knows?
All right, so we're just gonna get going on this because one, it's amazing that people do reach out. Well, at least when they're told to. But I love hearing. That's the reason we do this segment is basically just your memories, listeners, experiences you guys have had with the game of that month. And I do let you know there's a lot here, so just bear with me. I haven't read all of this yet, so I'm gonna do my best not to stumble. All right,
perfect.
Mr. David.
Hello, Mr. Georgia.
And I'm gonna give you some crap because he said, "Hey, gamers gone."
Close enough.
Pluralized us. Games, not gamer.
Close enough. We're still pluralized. There's two
That's
of
your
us.
games. Excuse me. We're not gamers. We're games.
That's okay.
All right. I hear you are doing a podcast on how much of an impression Naughty Dog's The Last of Us made on us listeners. I'm not really sure how formal or informal I have to be in this response, but I'll try my best. So let's get to it.
Thank you, Dave. He always does that.
I remember the first time I'd heard about Tulo. Is that the proper?
Tulo.
I always want to say Tilo, and I don't know why. Tulo. Well, I do know why, but it was fresh off the heels of my completion of Uncharted 2. I know I was late to the party on some of these generation titles at the time. I was much later. But what a game as well.
That was Larry speaking right there.
I couldn't get enough of what Naughty Dog was putting out at the time. Coming from a film background, this was the perfect melding of cinematic hysteria coupled with elegant, intuitive controls.
Very eloquently put, Davey boy.
I was hooked after the opening scene. Experiencing the announcement trailer was pretty special. But with all things in my life, I keep expectations low, so it fell off my radar. Flash forward sometime after that when the game releases. Now, being a poor college student with little time and even less money didn't afford me the pleasure of playing video games often. Despite what my mother thought. I remember going to my friend Michael's house, wink, wink, and immediately upon arriving, there's commotion downstairs. Obviously a video game session amongst brothers and friends. I lumber down the stairs, and in regular fashion, I first say, "Hey, boys." Or something to that effect.
That is totally his thing. Oh, man.
And I glance at the TV. Oh, boy. The Last of Us is out. Before I can even sit down for a sec, they just finished the intro. You know, the intro. Mike says to whomever was playing, "Dude, save." Then to me, "Davey boy, you got to see the beginning of this." If I wasn't already psyched before, I trusted in my friend Mike. This is going to be good.
Thank you, David. I appreciate that right there.
They start the game over again. I'm sure all that are reading or listening to this know that intro. I don't remember if I was controlling or not, but man, about 10 to 15 minutes sprint by of consisting of heart-racing action and gut-churning emotion that it probably took me a solid 10 seconds to say anything at all. I was taken aback by what I saw and thought. This right here is where the medium crosses over to an art form. I've always considered video games art. How can you not? But this propelled it into a stratosphere as to how the rest of the world can stop and think. Wow, they really made me feel something right there. Now, I could seriously go on all day on about the mechanics, although have shown their age a tad as technology has improved. For what they accomplished with what they had, it was a masterpiece. Storytelling is second to none here. Troy Baker and Ashley Johnson should be proud of their voice work. The bond is felt throughout the entire journey. And that soundtrack by Gustavo, I used to remember how to say his name. I know it's not exactly how it's pronounced. I apologize. Gustavo is an opus to be remembered and revered for how to set a compelling, poignant landscape. Let's also not forget the unique ways they'd put you in a position that did not feel normal or comfortable. For example, hanging upside down with only a gun and your inverted take on the world, all whilst being bombarded by wave after wave of runners and clickers.
I forgot about that scene. That was really good.
I don't think anything really is perfect in life, but this is one of those experiences that nearly captures that title. Again, I could go on and on about how that game made me feel that day. As a poor college student with little money to spare on something like that for $60, you bet your A word I bought and finished on normal in less than a week. Thank you guys for reaching out to me about this game. I love to talk about it, and I love to think about it. Heck, I rebought for cheap on my PS4. Maybe I'll go and play that. Be good, my friends, and good luck with the podcast. P.S. This might be the longest email I've ever written.
That is the best way to end it. Yes, this is the longest. Thank you, David. I just want to touch up on a few points that you said. One, he has a very good life motto. He even said it, mindset, going in with low expectations. That, I think, is something us as gamers need to change. We have such high expectations for what, like, the problem with Red Dead 2, Half-Life 3, if that ever comes to be, and Last of Us Part 2, the expectations are so high that we are going to be let down.
You're going to be, like, regardless of how much of a masterpiece or not the game is, you have such high expectations for it that whatever they do isn't ever going to be quite enough.
I kind of relate that to the new God of War. I had pretty meager expectations because I'm not a big God of War fan. I played the first one, I liked it, I played a little bit of 2, but I was like, I'll just play it. Sure. I'm blown away by it. It's really good. We'll talk about that someday. But this is a good mindset to be in, so thank you, David. I love that he trusts my opinion on things. I really appreciate that because we don't get to talk as much because obviously he's quite a few states away, but I get to see him in. By the time you're listening to this, I might be actually hanging out with him because
Which is cool.
we're meeting in Nashville halfway. The wife and I are going down to Nashville, and then he's meeting us up there.
Well, then for that case, hi, David.
So I also like video games as art. He's always seen them as that, and that's a very big contention in media still today. Should we see them as art? Shouldn't we? Because the problem with that is you are selling these games as a commodity, but then it's also art. So it's really hard to balance that, but I agree. I see video games as art too. I mean,
oh, absolutely.
If a movie can be artful, so can Inside. Listen to our last episode, Inside.
Yes, very much so.
And the one other thing I had was nothing in life is perfect.
Oh, that's fantastic. It was very well worded.
Is that true?
Perfection, though, is technically, and I see where you're going with this, I don't think you need to always follow through with the absolute pinnacle, like, textbook definition of perfect.
Oh, of course not.
I think something can be perfect for you.
I mean, look at this fat, chubby cat. Have you seen her?
Yeah.
Bella Jubilee. Perfect. She's been snoring through this.
I honestly didn't even know she blends into the chair so well. I didn't even know she was still there.
A little black cat. She's not very little. She's pretty giant.
She's a big cat.
Yeah.
I did want to say real quick his expectations, having low expectations. I always like, there was a podcast I listened to a long time ago, and I wish I could remember the guest's name, but there was a life motto he lived by. And I say lived because I know he has since passed away. But he always went by high aspirations, low expectations. I thought that was beautiful.
Yeah, I've heard you mention that before.
Said that before, yeah. All right.
It's a good one.
Next up is a boy
Thank you, David Boy.
by the name of Dominic.
Hello.
It's hard for me to type this out because I could literally spend hours upon hours talking about Last of Us. Hours upon hours. Talking is all in capitals.
Oh.
I've been an avid gamer since playing the Sega Genesis back in the 90s. Since then, I've played games.
Sorry you started with Sega Genesis.
Really every platform.
I'm just kidding. Sega Genesis is fine.
But I have yet to discover a game that captures my heart and spirit like Last of Us. So no T on that one.
He's a low user, not too low.
In my opinion, for a game to reach its true potential, it must draw the player into its reality. What I mean by that is that the player must be completely emotionally invested in said game's world. Story. Last of Us does just that. To keep things short and simplistic, for the sake of discussion, I'm going to share my top 3 moments. In no particular order. He must have gotten our idea. And how they contributed towards my view of its perfection. I am voiding Sarah's death because that's a given. That bleep was heavy. I don't care who you are. That was an emotional roller coaster. Agreed. First one.
Agreed too.
Hi, Bill. We first meet Bill not long after losing Tess. So far, the game has shown us nothing but a sad, broken down, depressive world filled with sorrow and death. We witnessed Joel losing his daughter, and then we witnessed Joel losing a close companion. At this point, we are all thinking we are at a destination effed. There's no coming back from this pit of despair. Then, bam! We cross paths with Bill. It doesn't take long to come to the realization that this man is bat bleep crazy. And that's exactly what I love about him. For me, running around killing infected while Bill angrily spews out his clever one-liners was certainly memorable. It was a perfect transition from one end of the spectrum to the other, depressive to comedy. 2.
I want to touch on that. I never even thought about that. He is kind of a comedic relief.
He is kind of a comedic relief, yeah.
I mean, there's points of kind of little banter here and there back between Ellie and Joel, just slightly, but Bill is kind of the first, like, little right.
He really is. Bill is a very fascinating character, and I'm glad that they put him in the game. And I think I definitely agree with Dominic in the sense that they implement him in the correct spot.
Totally, yeah.
So it wasn't just like, oh, here's another depressed. Now, granted, Bill obviously has his hardships and he's been through some tough stuff.
There's some depressing stuff that goes on,
but there's not going to be very many rays of sunshine in that world.
No.
Number 2, and he abbreviates it like I've seen a lot of people do, but he just calls it Ishmael.
Oh, Ishmael, nice.
It can be easy to miss out on Ishmael's part of the story. The only way to learn about him is from the artifacts we come across in the sewers, except the last artifact shortly after the sewers. The story of Ishmael is sad and tragic. If you know his side story, then you'll understand what I mean when I say this. Sorry, but it's getting late, and telling his story play by play would take a while. In his last note after the tragedy that happened with the sewer colony, Ishmael left a passage that still stays with me to this day. Every part of my being wants to give up. This is okay, cool. So obviously he'll have it written down. It'd be easy to surrender to this world. I can't do that, though. I have too much faith in humanity. That's such a fantastic quote.
It is.
That quote speaks volumes to me. It's more than just a quote from a video game, but a quote that I live by. We've all been through bleepity bleep. Every day we hear about another mass shooting, bombing going off, genocide, acts of discrimination, etc. It can be easy to give up on one another, but the good in humanity is still out there, and we cannot forget that. No matter how many times you get pushed down, there will always be someone out there who will be there to help you up. We must not give up on each other, all in caps.
Is that a weird coincidence that we were talking about the chaos of... We're relatively chaos-free, but we could turn the tides if we want to. Yeah, so that's just
That's very well worded.
Some mind-bending stuff right there.
Number 3, good, bad, or just a regular Joel. The ending of The Last of Us can leave one with a lot of questions. Throughout the story, we learn that Joel didn't live the most notable life post-outbreak. He lied, killed, and cheated all in the name of survival. I mean, bleep. He killed a bunch of scientists trying to cure the outbreak! ! All in the name of his own personal connection to Ellie. But what I love about this is that the game leaves it up to us. Did he do wrong? Did he do right? Or did he do what anyone else would have done if it were their loved one? That question is big right there. Sorry if this seems short and incomplete. No. I literally just started a new job. Okay, congrats. And it's been a crazy last few days. I wish I had more time to get more in-depth about my 3 selections, but I didn't want to leave you guys empty-handed.
Thank you.
There is so much I didn't get in, but I need to go and get off to bed. It's going to be a long day tomorrow. I hope your day is going much better. Yeah. Granted, by the time you hear this
is a month.
You're an expert in your job now. You're already getting promoted.
A future seer. I like that he talked about, or an interesting comment. I like they talked about it and brought it up and made me actually think. He says the definition of, I think this was his line exactly. Definition of perfect: you have to be immersed in the world. You have to have
an story,
an emotional attachment to the story.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I again, in a creepy fashion, we were literally just talking about like what the definition of perfect was, and
gosh, it's so weird. Okay, just so people listening know, I don't read these.
Yeah,
I might skim. Larry told me, it's like, have you seen how long Tim's is? Which is coming up, and I was like, oh, that is long. I just skimmed through it, which is great. I love it. And when he did his
Tim, I appreciate how long it is. Don't make
he was a StarCraft one,
yeah,
so 8 episodes later, or 8 games later, he's back, which I love. But we don't connect the pieces until this part right now. And it's weird that we've talked about little things like David has no idea what Dominic wrote, and he's talking about perfect, and then this isn't perfect, this is perfect.
Well, and I'll say this, and you guys are going to be sick and tired of hearing me say this, but like the word grounded continues to come back in this game.
Yeah,
You
maybe that's
get-
why I call it grounded mode.
You get put. Yeah, good point. Clever. You get put into this world, so you're kind of a part of the story. You care for the characters. You care for what's going on. What more can you ask for? Like you're invested in the story, and clearly it's not just a phenomenon because everyone agrees. Like, not everyone, but most people agree. This story, they did something right with this game.
Super Mario World. How invested are you in that story? I don't know. I love that game. Hearthstone. You love your Rocket League.
Don't get me started on Rocket League. That's my own version of crack.
So I like what he's saying, that you need an emotional connection to the story, but one of my favorite games, which we'll probably end up doing, is Super Mario 64. I mean, I have no emotion.
I don't know. I didn't really like it.
Shut up. It's. I mean, the story is you're going on. Peach gonna bake you a cake. I mean, that's all.
But there's different expectations, right? Like the controls and the freedom of like a Mario 64. Like you don't have like as. Let's get into that discussion. That might be another day because like there's a different expectation in the type of game you're playing. In a Mario game, you're never looking to like cry because of how deep and emotional a story is. Like, I mean, I don't know. Maybe one of these times Bowser's gonna do something really cruel. I mean, and technically he does steal Mario's woman. So
is he Mario's woman? I don't know. Or is she? I don't know.
I don't know. I'm convinced they're just best friends. Or she's just stringing them along. Like
maybe
in reality,
those comics with Bowser and Peach are
that or in reality, Luigi's really the one that's everything's going for there. She likes the taller guy. I mean, technically, Mario is shorter than Peach.
Yeah. I mean, so's Wolverine. Short and hairy, man.
That's a really random transition.
It's the future.
With that transition, speaking of short and hairy, let's talk about Dennis.
He is not short.
Sorry, Dennis. I have no idea how I did that. All right.
Because you're dumb.
So many special memories this game brings to me. First off, the game's fantastic intro to make you feel helpless.
Oh, that's a good word.
By the way, this is one of the 3 that I didn't read, so I'm going to do my best.
You got this.
To make you know what the game will be like and that it doesn't want to hold your hand. You fight, you run, you struggle. You do your damn best to survive for the first 5 minutes. But the outcome in the end was futile, and you were left with this feeling, how the bleep do I go on? It was perfect, the way you felt so helpless to want to move forward, but you know the game must go on. So we get into this new world, a harsh, harsh world, and where not only we have to worry about the infected, but other humans, as well as the infected. Oh man, they each will scare the living daylights out of you, each with their own unique quality that keeps you on your toes. But the worst part in any true zombie-like theme, one bite is all it takes. One bite for Joel, and it's game over. Another way they make you feel helpless. Then you will meet other humans, allies, and enemies, and time you have to make hard decisions, or rather they are made for you, that you have to leave good people behind. Then people who are just trying to do their best part to survive view you as an enemy. They played this part so well, where you slowly get desensitized taking down bad humans. The game gives you a big slap in the face to make you remember about humanity. I like that.
Yeah, that's good.
You enter a room and this random guy starts attacking you, and you, the player, by this point in the game, say, this guy must die because he's attacking me. That's when you meet Henry and his son. You become allies with them and protect each other for a while, even throughout the rough sniper protection that you try to provide Ellie and the boys. But it wasn't enough. Something tragic happens, and you once again understand this harsh, harsh world. And the list still keeps going. So for those of you who haven't played it, I won't spoil the rest. Lastly, this game is particularly special to me as one of my best friends, whom I like to call a brother, introduced me to this game. Don't get too teary-eyed, Michael. And it started our yearly summer gaming horror genre. We binged this game from the beginning to end with very little sleep. For me, it made me feel how characters would feel. As the game progressed, we got more tired and tired until we were exhausted, and it connected with the game to me. A small nap, and we got back to it. This game was a perfect emotional roller coaster, and I hope that the next edition will continue the trend.
Very, very elegantly put. I wrote down a few notes that I want to tackle. I'm going to start doing this because I like to make note of it.
I like this too.
So I like that he brought up humans versus infected. And almost every single time when people talk about zombie movies or zombie shows, whatever it is, it's not the zombies you worry about, it's the humans.
Yeah.
It's the people afterward. And this game, I think, does a really good job of making both very scary and very threatening.
For different reasons. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Definitely.
I mean, the humans, obviously, they're pieces of but and you want to choke them out, but they could be David's family members. Who knows? The husbands. Makes it all very interesting in that regard. Interesting. What this brings back to my review episodes. So the very first episode, he says this game makes you make decisions, makes you leave people behind. Like, for instance, maybe if you had more choice, you'd want to take Bill with you, but Bill doesn't want to go, and that's the story they wanted to tell. So they went through and they're like, nope, this is what's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
You can't save Henry Sam. That's never in the cards. And I like that, and I like that he highlighted that because it just made me think about this. It goes down to the directing. And then, of course, I can't read my handwriting, so I don't know what it says. Perfect roller coaster. This game is the perfect roller coaster of emotion. I forgot.
We're bringing up the word perfect a lot in this.
Yeah,
section.
I mean, it's a masterpiece of a game. We never gave it a score ourselves, but it's fine. I believe, like how Dominic said, Bill's a ray of hope. There is some ray of hope with Sam and Henry, especially when they're sitting down cooking dinner. In the exchange between Ellie and Sam.
There's normal people out there.
Of course, thank you, Shadow, for my brother. Guatemalan brother. Hope everything's going okay, and we'll have a gaming binge. By the time you're hearing this, it'll be like a month and a half later-ish. So that'll be good. I don't know what game we're going to play.
Grab a snack. Timothy.
Oh, Tim! My novel writer. For StarCraft and now Tilo.
Dude, where to even begin?
Good question.
I'm just going to write a bunch of things, and you can go from there.
He did message me. He's like, I just started writing. You can take out whatever you want. I was like, no, I'm just going to leave it all in.
We may eventually get to a point someday where I might, but I kind of just like seeing what your guys' thoughts are.
Because when you just ramble on about stuff, you get to points that you didn't think you would at the beginning. So
I'm not kidding when I say I've wanted to do some sort of gaming blog for a long time. I think you should, by the way. And I could absolutely write a post about this game. The idea would be something along the lines of the gaming backlog. I like backlog butcher better, but that's close. It's a good second. Because I never play games on time. And with the availability of legacy games these days, people all over are going back and playing games they missed out on.
Hey,
it's almost like we had a good idea with this podcast.
Yeah, that is our idea for podcast. So thank you, Tim, for honing that fact that there are people out that want to leisurely play games. Can't be up on everything.
And honestly, when you start up your blog finally and it's successful, just let them know that there's also a podcast out there that does that. Just kind of give us a little a few
when you leave us behind in fame. It's okay.
And the idea would be working through those and writing about them. Not quite as reviews, but reflective experiences through today's gaming lens and whether they're worth the time for people who miss them.
I like it.
Anyway, sorry, sidetracked. But if you think that idea sounds remotely cool, I'd love to talk to you further. To the point. Last of Us. I got introduced to... I wonder if you wanted me to read that first aloud or if that was more like a conversation between us.
I don't care.
Let us know. I think... Let's push him to do this because I think he should.
I agree.
Last of Us. I got introduced to survival horror at a friend's with Resident Evil 2. It's a pretty good game.
Good choice.
Eventually borrowed a copy when I got a PS2, and I could only play for 20 minutes at a time because the tension and fear was so overwhelming. The same went for Code Veronica X.
Never played that one.
But when Resident Evil 4 came along, as great of a game as it is, better than Resident Evil 2 or Code Veronica technically, it lacked that tension. But it did have really good pacing.
Agreed on that front, too.
Action moments were complemented by ominous exploratory sections. And then came Last of Us. Now, I should say, I was late to actually playing the game, as I usually am. Don't worry, I hear you. I had heard the reviews, the acclaim, and I've been a Naughty Dog lover since Jak 2, possibly my favorite 3D platformer. Interesting. Huh. But my PS3 had died around the time it came out. Thankfully, I eventually moved in with a roommate who had it and let me borrow his PS3. Now, this was a time when the PS4 was out, and I'm a bit of a PC gamer. PC Master Race. So I knew what cutting-edge graphics looked like, and I was blown away when I started that game up. Visually, I couldn't believe what they pulled off on the PS3. That game would have been good-looking for a PS4 launch title. But to make the game about graphics is severely underplaying it. Agreed. Overall, I'd say The Last of Us is a perfect gaming experience. Man, that word. It accomplishes everything it sets out to do with flawless execution, but the two things it does best are pacing and tension. It really combines the two halves of Resident Evil's legacy and then manages to incorporate a way better story and much more nuanced characters. But that's besides the point. Right from the opening, this game hooks you with a fast-paced tension and an emotional climax that establishes our main character, and then it slows down. But Last of Us doesn't feel boring when it slows down. Rather, it allows you to soak up how beautiful the game is and how well done the characters are.
Thank you for complimenting my review. That's why I said this game is painstakingly slow at times, but it's a good thing.
The combination of high action moments followed by helpless tension followed by peaceful exploration never feels redundant, forced, or boring.
Yeah, it's that JRPG formula.
Can I also just really quickly admit, like, I love the fact that you like spaced everything out and it's a lot easier to read than some of the other. Very well done. My eyes don't hurt. Each segment perfectly complements what came before it, giving your brain and your hands exactly what it needs. A lot of great zombie movies have that moment of peaceful joy where you know nothing bad is going to happen and see the characters act like the normal humans they'd be if the world hadn't gone to hell. 28 Days Later has the grocery store scene. Dawn of the Dead remake has the lounge down with the sickness music montage. I forgot about that. Zombieland has the souvenir shop destruction scene. Zombieland even uses their scene to establish a rule. Enjoy the little things. The Last of Us is amazing at enjoying the little things. It has that tense feeling of desperation that Resident Evil once had, where you can't fight every battle, where you run into a scenario and you don't have enough ammo to face it, where you're stuck in a corner and you're basically screwed. But then it has these lovely character moments where you know everything's all right. Even though I'd describe Last of Us as more tense than any of the Resident Evil experiences, seriously in game, it's freaking terrifyingly exhausting at times. But because of how well paced it is, I could play it for much longer than 20 or 30 minutes at a time. It felt like everything Resident Evil should have become, but that series kind of lost its way. Though, in fairness to Capcom, the Resident Evil 7 demo scared the bleep out of me. And I was right back to my original Resident Evil feelings. Need to get to that full game still. That's the story of my life.
It's a good game. Good
Smiley
game.
face.
You should play that one.
In conclusion, there are two specific Last of Us moments I had to mention, which is probably what you wanted in the first place.
No,
I like all this so far. One, I don't remember what level, but it was maybe a third of the way into the game. I was low on supplies, no melee weapon to use, and I was on a floor filled with clickers. I had been sneaking through when I entered a section that had a clicker straight ahead. One movement and it would come straight to me and kill me instantly. I had to sit and wait for it to pass. This wasn't the first time something like this had happened, so I didn't think it'd be a problem. Except the clicker didn't alter its course. It kept walking straight at me. Step by step, inch by inch, I had nowhere to go, and it was crawling and clicking its way within feet. I gripped my controller so hard I swore the plastic would crack. And then, at the last moment, maybe 6 inches away from Joel, right as I was ready to go back to the previous save, it turned to my right and walked past. Pure algorithmic chance saved me.
That is so crazy.
Then I have to mention Henry killing his brother Sam.
Oh, man.
It was the video game equivalent of Requiem for a Dream. Good comparison. Everything seems great. The moment shifts, the music swells, death, and then cut to black. I remember sitting there with my jaw dropped. Everything had gone so wrong so quickly, and it felt so personal. Few games have made me feel anything like that. Anyway, that mostly sums up my Last of Us experience. I'd say sorry for the novel, but I'm not. Smiley face.
Thank you for the novel there, Tim. All right, so a couple things I wanted to touch base on. Graphics being severely underappreciated, and also graphics in general. We've talked about this. Graphics don't make a good game.
Yes.
They definitely help sell a game. They definitely help fill the mood, but I mean,
it is also something to remember though. Like I do feel like we're almost maybe getting to the point now where we're like retro gamers are getting onto the opposite end of it. there are people who put hard work into making graphics too. So like the engines behind it, the work that needs to go by, like so like you should still appreciate a game for its graphics, but it doesn't just because a game has better graphics than another game doesn't mean that it's better.
You know the buzzwords of main media is like 4K,
Of
10,
course, of
whatever.
course.
And I like that he
120 FPS or whatever now.
Yeah, I like that he calls it like he mainly games on PC, but he could appreciate this PS3 game.
Mm-hmm.
And, there's some people that just cannot
Yep.
give any other console or whatever they're playing a space to. Okay, yeah, this is good.
Hence my sarcastic PC Master Race.
Yes, I
comment.
know. You dumb. But I know the N64 PS1 games; those ones have aged the worst. So sometimes it can be hard to look past graphics. But I like that graphics aren't everything, and he kind of appreciated that that he brought that up. Peaceful moments. That is something that this game does really well, and I appreciate that he brought that up. And the giraffe is exactly that. You go from this crazy scene of her butchering him, David, and then you have a little lead up and everything's bright, but then when she runs away, you feel tension, but then you get released. Peaceful moment. Nothing's gonna go bad. You're safe.
Yep.
There's
something important about those like safe moments.
Mm-hmm. Oh, and then I thought I said cat to black. I was like, am I talking about my cat? Cut to black. I've mentioned that a couple times. I love that use in this game.
Mm-hmm.
So good. So thank you, Tim, for writing in, because that was awesome.
And I believe, lastly, Mr. Ben the Bearded.
Ben, you're the last of us.
Well, in his first phrase is "The Last of Us." That was pretty good. I'll give you that one. The Last of Us is a well-made game that I have fond memories of playing. I still remember the story even after all this time. From when the infected first started and Joel lost his daughter, to Tess being bitten, meeting Bill, then Henry and Sam. The game was a bittersweet tale of brief respites of the grim reality that lived in for it to only collapse under the weight of the world. That's such a good song from Nier Automata. One of the appeals of the game was how well the game manages to capture the emotion of the moments and actually make you feel for the characters. Sarah's death, Joel's daughter, was a sucker punch to the gut, and I'm man enough to admit I teared up a bit. And there's no reason that needs to be something. It doesn't need to be a manly thing that you man.
I know.
I
stigma. Yeah.
It's a stigma, but like, trust me, we all teared up, even if it was delayed. In my case, when Joel got impaled on the piece of rebar at the university, I physically flinched. The enemies were very well done. The design of the cordyceps, cordyceps. Thank you. So you did do it right. That was just my bad reading. Infected humans was well made in the nature of how the fungus works. For the clickers, the fungus bursts from the skull, though I would think it would weaken the body and not enforce it to become a bloater. The standard runners and stalkers were nicely designed, blended into the background.
Stalkers.
There's
my CC.
Yep. But not enough to be invisible. The hunters were a nice change up from the infected, actually having to think strategically instead of run and gun. As for the multiplayer, whoa, that stuff could get intense.
Yeah.
It was a nice implementation of the scraps to fashion stuff from the single-player game in real time and then immediately lob it at the group of enemies on the other side of the stack of crates you were crouched behind, only to see it roll off the bridge and into a waterfall, and then curse as you ran from a hail of gunfire following you. It was fun, though. Thinking of how to use your limited resources to fight your opponents, whether to risk running for the ammo or wait for someone else to grab it and take them out. So much to consider in little time. Overall, a memorable game that will stay with me, though the sequel has me a little iffy, if I'm honest.
Oh. And on a curious note there, Mr. Ben the Bearded.
So we'll have to hear from you on the sequel eventually.
Yes, because I'm sure we'll be doing that. Or maybe just coverage. I don't even know. I like that he pointed out the grim reality and how the way of the world collapsed. I know that's your song, whatever. But that is the case, and we even speculated about this with... it was in this episode, right? Or in the violence episode. I don't even remember anymore. No, I think it was this episode about who would survive and how quickly things would go. And the grim reality, that's a perfect way to encapsulate what would happen to our world. And the feeling for characters. Again, this has probably been stated multiple times now, but that I don't think that can be understated. You almost the second I think it was the GameSpot review we were talking about, Ellie is almost immediately likable.
Mm-hmm.
You walk in, she starts fighting you because she thinks Marlene's under attack. And from there, she's sarcastic, she's off-putting, but she has just a different sense of growing. She's grown up in a different world than Joel has, and that their butting heads is very interesting.
Her character, just growth and depth is just unbelievable.
It's crazy, and we can never understate that point of this game, and I think that's why this game also lives on, because that's what most people think. Just like Ben said, he's like, or it's David or Ben, I don't remember, who said they finished it, and no, that was Ben. They can still finish it.
Yes.
Or they can still think of the story and whatever happened.
Yeah.
And then, of course, multiplayer, because him and he is honestly the only person I know that played the multiplayer with me, and I love that. You'll craft these items in the games, and you're like, I got this, don't worry. You'll like lob something, and it just totally misses the mark. And there's so many times I'm like, Ben, or like he'll be like, Mike, you totally missed. And then you lose your position, because it's all about, there is not really much radar in there or anything like that, and the different perks. And I love that we had those experiences together.
I love the concept of it too. Like, it sounds like they really did put.
Well, yeah, you don't have unlimited. Like, if we ran out of ammo, you're like, well, now I got to run up and punch the guy or run away and find something.
Yeah, that's cool. I like that.
So good. But that was 5 of 5, so that means there is no more memories. So we have to say
my least favorite words to hear.
Chicken and waffles. I was trying to think of a word. No. So, The Last of Us has now gone by, but it will forever be preserved in our memories through this podcast and through our experiences. That was a lovely episode. That was a very long episode. So if you made it all the way to this point, you were awesome.
Congratulations. You are a stamina just
beast.
I couldn't think of a word.
And,
we've been talking.
Thank you to all those 5 of you. I know I said it before, but thank you for all 5 of those that shared those memories. That is one of my favorite parts. Yeah, it might have been long, but I enjoy that, and it made me think of a couple other things too on the way. So you can never lose out on that. That's great. So we're listening to some lo-fi hip-hop beats in the background with this
Charlie
cool animation.
Human.
Yeah, Charlie 2 Human floating. And there's a cat. Looks like Studio Ghibli. And that's how we're going to end all this. It's going to be wonderful. And next, coming up, is going to be our winter special. We're going to do something a little bit different. A little bit different, yeah.
We're doing a winter special? I had to.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, of course. So I'm drowning out this ending because I really don't want Last of Us to go.
I was kind of waiting. I was just like, he's kind of going slower this time.
Yeah.
You can tell, like,
but
honestly, did we really talking now? It's like, there's so much to talk about.
I know. There's so much to talk about. Excited. Give this one a chance. If you know somebody that would like to listen to any of these memories, please share it. So Tim, if you're listening, share it.
Eat a lot of food this Thanksgiving, by the way.
Yeah.
Not just Tim specifically, everybody.
If you celebrate Thanksgiving, eat a lot of
food. It doesn't matter about Thanksgiving.
Because, we could be one step away from the Blackstone Age. Blackstone Age? That's wrong. The Dark Ages. And we need to get as much food now as we can because it might be scarce. And we don't want to be eating them peoples.
You're going on too much. Let's let them wrap up here.
Have a wonderful rest of your month. GG.